Okay, hello. So you probably just watched video 301, which is how to go about doing the reading passages on the SAT. If you didn't watch that video, I would strongly suggest watching that one before this one. Why? Because a lot of the methods and strategies that we're going to employ during this passage are ones that were discussed on video 301. Anyway, that said, let's just go into this passage. So this is from, first let me tell you where this is from. This is from SAT Practice Test 1. So if you want to kind of locate this passage on your own and try it first, and then watch this video, that's absolutely fine. Again, this is SAT 1. It's the first practice test available on the SAT's website. You can easily access this one, or it should be under your student account as well. Anyway, this is a fiction passage. So let's talk about what we should be doing as an active reader. Hopefully you're saying, Dan, we definitely need to key in on the characters here. We need to understand who's who and what their relationship to one another is. If you said that, then you get the gold star or whatever the equivalent is. So we do want to know who the characters are. We want to know the setting, and we want to know the characters. Those two things are going to play a big role in the questions later. Some people love to go and take a peek at the questions. I would say there's absolutely 0 point in doing that. If you're an active reader and you're keyed in on these two things and you understand what you read, by the time you get to the questions, you'll know what you need to know. And that's just as good as looking at them beforehand. If you look at them beforehand, you're losing time and you're trying to remember information rather than just concentrating on getting a good read. Okay, so let's start the passage. First things first, we always want to read this. So The Strangeness of Beauty by Lydia Minatoya. The setting is Japan in 1920. See, we would have missed that if we didn't read this first part. And they give us more important information. I'm actually going to do this in red. Chi and her daughter Naomi are members of the House of Fuji, a noble family. Okay, so they come from nobility in Japan in the 1920s. And Chi is the mother, Naomi is the daughter. So already we're kind of diagnosing characters. A lot of people ask, should I write in the margins? It takes a little bit of time to write in the margins. If it helps you, do it. But if you're having trouble finishing passages in time, and again, if you remember about 6.5 minutes for the passage, about 6.5 for the questions, I just kind of make sure I'm paying attention to the key things and I kind of circle and underline because I feel like I don't break stride when I do that. Okay, so we already have our first character, Akira. So Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would Che, the other character, the mother of Naomi, have been more receptive? So we have to kind of figure out more receptive to what and what tradition did he break? So already, as an active reader, we're asking those questions. He came on a winter's eve. That's Akira again. He pounded on the door while a cold rain beat on the shuttered veranda. So at first, Che thought him only the wind. The maid knew better. So we have a maid. See if she comes into play here. Che heard her soft scuttling. The maid also shows, Che is part of a noble family, Japan nobility. But anyway, the maid knew better. Che heard her soft scuttling footsteps, the creak of the door. Then the maid brought a calling card to the drawing room for Che, the mother again. Che was reluctant to go to her guest. Perhaps she was feeling too cozy. She and Naomi were reading at a low table set atop a charcoal brazier. And again, there's Naomi, her daughter. A thick quilt spread over the sides of the table so their legs were tucked inside with the heat. Who is it at this hour in this weather? Che questioned as she picked the name card off the maid's lacquer tray. So already based off of what she's kind of thinking and questioning, we already get a sense that Che may be slightly annoyed by this visit. Shinoda Akira, Kobe Dental College, she read. Naomi recognized the name. Che heard a soft intake of air. So clearly Naomi recognizes the name and she's breathing in air slowly for some reason based off of recognizing the name. I think you should go, said Naomi. So maybe Naomi thinks that this is important based off of the name. We'll find out. Akira was waiting in the entry. Ooh. He was in his early 20s. So we find out about Akira. He's in his early 20s. He's slim, serious, wearing the black military-style uniform of a student. As he bowed, so he bows, respectful, his hands hanging straight down, a black cap in one, a yellow oil paper umbrella in the other. Che glanced beyond him. In the glistening surface of the courtyard's rain-drenched paving stone, she saw his reflection like a dark double. Madame, said Akira, forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency. His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential. Deferential means respectful. That's a good word to know. If you defer to someone, you yield to them, show them respect. So he stole a deferential peek at her face. So he's just doing a slight glance at her. In the dim light, his eyes shone with sincerity. So that goes into the idea that he's a serious individual. Che felt herself starting to like him. Okay, so that's important. So she was annoyed at first, but now she's warmed up to this young man who seems serious. Come inside. Get out of this nasty night. Surely your business can wait for a moment or two. I don't want to trouble you. Normally, I would approach you more properly. But I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. Congratulations, Che said with amusement. That is an opportunity, I'm sure. But how am I involved? So far, we know that Akira approaches with a serious matter. Naomi is definitely kind of breathing in her breath, waiting to see how this correspondence happens. The mom seems to like this young man, but she's trying to figure out, like, okay, what are you actually about? So anyway, even noting Naomi's breathless reaction to the name card, Che had no idea. Akira's message, delivered like a formal speech, filled her with maternal amusement. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind. So Akira is clearly coming with a sincere message, and Che is kind of just finds him cute and amusing. That's how she viewed him as a child. So this is important to understand these characters' thoughts, their interactions, and how they relate to one another. You're going to see how important this understanding the relationship between these characters is when we hit the questions. It was how she viewed Naomi. Even though Naomi was 18 and training endlessly in the arts needed to make a good marriage, Che had made no effort to find her a husband. Akira blushed. Depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand, her hand in marriage. Suddenly, Che felt the dampness of the night. Okay, so this is an important shift. So Che, who feels kind of nice and blithe and amused by this boy, all of a sudden she feels the dampness of the night. So that's a big shift in how she feels. Then, does Naomi know anything of your ambitions? We have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval. If you give your consent, I become Naomi's Yoshi. And there's a footnote here. And we see that a Yoshi is a man who marries a woman of higher status and takes her family's name. So he's coming from the lower status, trying to marry the daughter of this noblewoman. And to compound his uphill battle, he's not using traditional methods. He hasn't actually gotten a go-between to speak to the mom. He's going to the mom directly himself. So he's breaking traditions as he speaks to kind of a noble woman. We'll live in the house of Fuji without your consent. I must go to America to secure a new home for my bride. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. Okay, so now he's looking at her directly. Abruptly, his voice turned gentle. I see I've startled you. My humble apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. My address is on my card. If you don't wish to contact me, I'll reapproach you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, good night. He bowed and left, taking her ease with effortless grace, like a cat making off with a fish. Mother, Che heard Naomi's low voice and turned from the door. He has asked you. The sight of Naomi's clear eyes, her dark brows, gave Che strength. Maybe his hopes were preposterous. So this is the mother, Che, feeling strength, that thinking that, hey, maybe this guy's way out of line doing this. Where did you meet such a fellow? Imagine. He thinks he can marry the Fuji heir and take her to America all in the snap of his fingers. Che waited for Naomi's ripe laughter. Naomi was silent, so this is unexpected to Che. She stood a full half minute, looking straight into her mother's eyes. Finally, she spoke. I met him at my literary meeting. Naomi turned to go back into the house, then stopped. Mother? Yes, I mean to have him. Okay. So you want to just kind of quickly pause and think, what's the relationship between these characters? How do they feel about their interactions with one another? Who's feeling what? I mean, what we get is that clearly there's this love between these Naomi and Akira, and they have discussed getting married. Clearly, he's broke tradition, approaching the mom directly, and clearly the mom, Che, feels kind of unsettled, startled, and put off by it. Okay, let's look at the questions. Which choice best describes what happens in the passage? So again, if you remember, as we hit these questions, there are key things we really want to pay attention to. We want to make sure we read exactly what the question wants, and we want to make sure that every answer choice we pick, every single word is 100% stated or implied or supported by the passage. And with each of these questions, feel free to pause the video and see if you can get it ahead of me. But obviously, I'll continue going. So which choice best describes what happens in the passage? One character argues with another character who intrudes on her home. Okay, so maybe he intruded on her home. Maybe Akira intruded. I don't know. I mean, she accepted him into the house, but there's definitely no open argument. So we can immediately cross that one off. And that's what I do, is I kind of just cross off words as they sour the answer choice. One character receives a surprising request from another character. I think the mom was definitely surprised that the boy was asking for her daughter's hand in marriage. One character reminisces about choices she has made over the years. So I don't think there's really any reminiscing or reflecting on choices. One character criticizes another character for pursuing an unexpected course of action. There's definitely an unexpected course of action. There's definitely the mom being critical of this, but she doesn't criticize the character himself. She's not a fan of it, but there's no actual open criticism. So based off of that, B is the right answer for one. Okay, let's look at 2. And again, feel free to pause and try this one yourself. Which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? So it kind of wants this structure. A careful analysis of a traditional practice. So the traditional practice would be the marriage and using a go-between. But do we get a careful analysis? Does this entire passage kind of center around the idea of asking for a hand in marriage and the tradition of doing it? No, I don't. There's no real analysis of whether it's good or bad, or diving deep into kind of this tradition. A detailed depiction of a meaningful encounter. Yeah, I think we do get details about how they look at one another, how they interact, how they feel. And it's definitely a meaningful encounter because the boy's asking for the girl's hand in marriage to the mother. A definitive response to a series of questions. I don't know if there's a series of questions. He kind of just asked one question, can I marry your daughter? And we don't get a response from her. She's kind of just shocked. A cheerful, all right, so already nothing's really cheerful. So we can probably get rid of that. Of an amusing anecdote. An anecdote is like a kind of a light story with a point to it. Yeah, so it's definitely not D. So B on this one. Okay. As used in line 1 and 65 directly most likely means. So whenever they ask you a word most nearly means, it's good to know the word and its definition. It's even more important to actually see how it's being used in context. So let's take a look. And you want to kind of come up with your own idea of what the word means before you actually look at the answer choices they give you. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? So if you remember, he didn't, had he followed form, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would Che have been more receptive? So he comes directly to Che rather than using, various intermediates to kind of negotiate the marriage. And then I think it also said line 65. He says, I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes time. So essentially, Che coming directly means he's just going straight to the mom without kind of using any channels of other people to have the discussion about asking for the hand in marriage. So he comes frankly, maybe confidently. He does ask for the hand in marriage, but when he says he's coming without a go-between, I don't know if that necessarily means confidently. Without mediation, that's definitely a strong one with precision. So this one gives a lot of students a lot of trouble. The only one we can really support is without mediation. Because if you look at the context, he doesn't use a go-between. He doesn't use his mother, father, or an elder to have the conversation with Naomi's mother. All these other ones would be assumptions. Whether or not he comes honestly, I don't know if his intentions are honest. I don't know how confident he's feeling. With precision, maybe, but again, that's not the support we get. It says directly, and it says twice not using a go-between. So that's without mediation. Again, you have to 100% support your answer with stated or implied in the passage. 4, which reaction does Akira most fear from Che? Remember, Akira is the young man and Chi is the mother. She will consider his proposal inappropriate. She will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. She will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. She will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. This is a tough one, and interestingly, it's paired with 5, which will give us support. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see if we can get rid of any of these. So she will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. I don't think he ever feels like she may think he's immature. She kind of looks at him as a child, but he never thinks about that, right? We need to figure out from Akira's perspective. That's about reading the question carefully. She will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. Maybe she will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. It never really talks about his emotions and whether or not he thinks she's taking them seriously. So we can probably get rid of B and D immediately. Now we just need to see what Akira fears based off of these lines. So let's go to 33. His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. So there's definitely nothing that he fears there. So we can get rid of that one. 49 to 51. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind. If you remember, and you can kind of zoom out, the context of this part is kind of Chi's thoughts, not Akira's thoughts. So we can get rid of that. 63 to 64. We have an understanding. This is Chi speak, Akira speaking. We have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes time. So he's definitely worried that the mother is going to judge his proposal as being inappropriate. That's definitely a fear he has. Let's see if 71 to 72 has anything that he may be fearing. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face, so there's no fear there. Okay, so the support is he thinks that the proposal is going to seem unseemly because he's gone directly to her. So A, she'll consider his proposal inappropriate. Okay, 6, in the passage, Akira, again, the young man, addresses the mother with affection but not genuine love. I don't think we can really support affection there. Objectivity, but not complete impartiality, maybe. Amusement, but not mocking disparagement. No, the mom is amused with Akira, not the other way around. So you have to be careful not conflating or confusing the two characters. Respect, but not utter deference. That's definitely the one. He bows to her multiple times. He kind of, at first, doesn't look her straight in the eyes. He is polite, but at the same time, he's not utterly deferential because he doesn't use the go-between. He's very direct in his proposal, and we could go back and look and find support for that. Okay, 7. The main purpose of the first paragraph is to describe a culture, criticize a tradition, question a suggestion, analyze a reaction. Let's take a look at the first paragraph. It's a short one. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Question. Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would Che have been more receptive? So it's essentially asking why Che wasn't so receptive to his suggestion of marrying Naomi, or his request. So is it describing a culture? No, it's not describing all of Japanese culture. Criticize a tradition. There's no criticism. Question a suggestion. He's not suggesting marriage, he's asking for it. Analyze a reaction. Yeah, it's trying to figure out why the reaction wasn't so spectacular when he asked for the hand in marriage. All right, 8. As used in line 2, form most nearly means, again, it's not what form literally means, it's how it's used in context of the passage. Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father? So form is kind of following tradition, doing what's expected. Appearance, no. Structure, no. Nature, no. Had he followed what's customary? Okay, 9. Why does Akira say his meeting with Che is a matter of urgency? Again, it says line 32. You may want to look back and get context. Madam, said Akira, forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency. And then he's going to explain why. He says, I don't want to trouble you. Normally, I would approach you more appropriately, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's community. And then he goes on to say, I need to know whether or not your daughter is going to be my wife and whether I should prepare for her to go with me. So if you keep on reading, you see why he thinks it's a matter of urgency. He needs to know whether or not he's going to be taking his bride with him. So he fears that his own parents, he never says anything about his own parents, that one immediately goes. He worries that Naomi will reject him. Be careful, Naomi is not the mom. So he's not worried about Naomi. He has been offered an attractive job in another country. He knows that Che is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. So the reason why it's urgent is he needs to know whether or not Naomi is going to be coming with him. Let's see where the support for that is. 39. Oop. Definitely don't want that popping up. I hate when my computer does that. Let's see if I can get rid of this. There we go. Okay. Let's go up. Oh, man. Get rid of that. Okay. Line 39. I don't want to trouble you. Normally, I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position, an opportunity in Seattle. So he's been offered an attractive job. A is going to be the right one there. Oh, actually, let's be careful. I'm sorry, I'm not being careful. I don't want to trouble you. No, he doesn't mention his job there. He mentions it actually in 39 to 42, but let's quickly check C and D. Depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. That doesn't mention the job. And then 72 to 73, abruptly, his voice turned gentle. I see I've startled you. My humble apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. Again, not directly supporting the answer. So it rises in a matter of urgency because of the job. Okay. I know this took a lot longer than the 13 minutes that you'd have. That's because we were kind of going through it methodically, making sure we had the right approach and we were thinking about the questions the correct way. I really hope that this video helps you with your approach to the fiction passage on the SAT and also just how to go about the questions on all passages. There'll be two more videos, one where we go over a primary source passage and the other one where we go over a science type of passage. But anyway, good luck with your studies and feel free to come back if you need anything else.